Right, next job then, we've got this plough in Dowdeswell plough 6 furrow. I think most of you know what a plough is and what it does. Put it on the back of a tractor, stick it in the ground, turns the soil over. But this one, they're wanting a press arm mounting onto it, so they can have a furrow press on it. And the furrow press runs on the ploughing you've already done with an arm off the side of your plough, and then it like breaks up the ploughing that you've just ploughed. So the customer has bought a press arm. I don't know whether it's a Dowdeswell one or not. It looks like it's maybe been blue originally and now it's green. But anyway, they want this to fit onto there. I'll see if I can find a clip of how this works. But I've never had anything to do with one myself, so I'm not really sure myself exactly how it works. I know what it does, but... So that arm mounts on there, and there's a little hydraulic ram in there for the locking pin. And then as you get to the end of the run, you drop your press off, so you open that up, it drops, the press stops where it is, you turn your plough over, you pick it back up again when you go back down the other way, lock it back in, and then it drags the press down the field and presses your ploughing out. But I've got this one and it's not right for this plough, it's too short. There's a bit missing, I think. I think there's supposed to be an extra, that's supposed to be like a sleeve with a pivot on the end that bolts into there, but I think that bit's missing. And these brackets here are supposed to bolt on where that bolt is and that bolt is. That one, I think, I'll have to double check, goes on the second furrow, and that one goes on the front furrow. And then that is like a arm to stop it folding back in again. But they don't fit, the bolt centers are wrong. Looks like they've been altered before anyway, so I think I'll just make some new ones of them rather than trying to alter them. The holes would have to be in the middle of here somewhere, and it's sort of going to interfere with the old holes. I'm maybe better off making some new ones. And then the arm is too short, so I'm going to have to lengthen that, and also that rod would be too short. So I have actually decided with these brackets, I'm going to fill them holes in with weld, and then that's where my new holes need to be. So I'll just re-drill them. So I've just been round inside there with a die grinder to clean them holes up a bit. I'll just grind the top off both sides and then fill them up with weld. that's that one drilled. And my holes filled in. Hopefully they're in the right place. I'm just taking them bolts out of there to bolt that bracket on. They're not really the right bolts. They should have a shank on there rather than thread all the way down. Someone looks like they've recently just put them in. Anyway, we'll bolt it back on with them. Got to be careful working on it. They've absolutely lathered the moldboards in grease to stop them going rusty, but it doesn't make it very nice to work on. That fits anyway, so that's good. So I need to decide what to do with this one now. I think I'll just drill a hole through like I did, and then I'll have to cut a bit of that out or do something with it, because the hole is going to be sort of half and half, I think. Right, I've got them holes drilled in there, so that one is sort of right on the edge, but I think I'll get away with that one. It's not ideal, but it's I'll get away with it. That one I can't get away with, it's sort of half and half. So I've cut this little half washer out, and then I'll weld that on there. Then the bolt has got full hold then. Just wants a bit more, just wants grinding off there, clean it up, and then we'll weld it on. It's saved a lot of time having to make a full new one, even though it wouldn't have taken much making. It's still quicker just drilling 2 holes in here and then cutting half a washer out and welding that on. Right, that's that bracket ready to go on then. It's just this hole, the leg comes out of line, that's the shear bolt, and that's your pivot. And you hit a stone, it snaps that bolt and this folds up out of the way. The trouble is they get really badly rusty in there. I've had this happen before myself when I've been ploughing. You snap a shear bolt, that folds up out of the way, and then it's a nightmare to get folded back down again because it's rusted in there. It takes a lot of force. You either have to, well, stick it in the ground. Sometimes you can, especially if it's a front furrow, lower the plough down and the point sticks in the ground, and then you back up and then it brings it back around, or up against a tree, or sometimes you have to come back to the farm and use a loader to push it back down again. But when I took that bolt out, it was real tight, and I had to sort of, well, I just wound it out with the impact gun, which hasn't really done the threads any good. So I'll try and get it lined up a bit better before I put the bolt back in, otherwise I'm going to damage it even more. I did jack it up. I thought when I took it out, I thought there was maybe some pressure on it, but it's just because it's not in line. Right, that's that bracket on. I just need my socket's not long enough, so I'll have to either tighten them with a spanner or find a longer socket. Both nuts have gone on, so that's good. It's not actually that seized up in there, it was sort of sat on the point, so I dragged up a bit more and it lined up not too bad. Yeah, that's them two brackets on. Now I need to decide what to do with this. I think originally that's gone into a sleeve and it's been adjustable with them holes, but it doesn't need to be adjustable now, I don't think. I've written on there it's 74" to, I don't know what that says, I can't remember where that measurement was from. I know it's from the pin at that end, but I can't remember where it goes to at this end, whether it's to the pivot or overall length, I don't know. Right, I've just spoke to the customer about that, about the length of that, and he said the 74", well, they'd measured it sort of from the end to where the pivot is, because when you're not using it, it sort of folds back out the way and it needs to fold in to be in here without, it doesn't want to be, when it's folded up, it doesn't want to be here because it'll be in the way when you're using it without the press on. So it sort of needs to be in between the furs. I suppose it won't be able to fold all the way in either because of the angle of it. It'll sort of be out at this angle, which will be fine because it's still sort of within the furs, within the end of the mold bars. And then, yeah, that bracket's to alter, so when it's folded out, it's like 90 degrees to the plough. So that were too short, I think. Yeah, I'll see what box section I have. If I have any that size, then we'll be able to just put some on the end. If not, I'll have to chop it off there. That's maybe the best option anyway. Chop it off there and replace the whole lot. See what we have. If we have some 80x80, we'll add a bit on the end. I've just been and cut that bit of box section off, just off the length out in the yard, so that can be welded on the end of there. I'm just thinking what I could do for a pivot, so I've just cut that bit of round bar off. That'll, well, just what's truing up on the end, but that'll go in there like that. I'll drill a hole through for the bolt to go through, and then probably drill that and ream a hole through it and weld that in there like that. And then that'll do for the pivot on that end. So I'll put that in the lathe, drill that through. So for the hole that I need in the box section, I've decided I'm just going to use a plasma in. So I've cut the first one out, and then I've got it lined up with that bit of plate underneath. So I'll just turn it over, line it back up with that plate, and then we should be in the right place to do the other side. I've got them holes plasmaed in there, so now this side was a little bit small. I had to die grind a little bit out of this one. Other side I made it 1/2 mil bigger. It fits all right through there. So yeah, that goes in there now like that. So I want 18 mil sticking through either side. So I've got some bits of plate there I can sit the box on, and I'll clamp it down to that, clamp that down to the bench, and then weld it in. I'll tack it in and then weld it in. Right, that's that welded in there, and then I've welded round there as well. And then I've just had to take that corner off because where it fits in the bracket on the plough, the corner was catching when it folds in, so I've just taken that off. So I'll put a welding bevel on the end of there now, and then same on that. Probably would have been better if I'd cut it off at an angle and cut the other bit off at an angle and then welded it on. then there'd be more weld then, but I haven't really got enough length to do that, so just have to bevel it. Right, I've got that on there, up again then, so that should be dead straight, and then dead straight because it's clamped down to the bench. Got a little gap in there to weld round, and then chamfered as well, so I should get a full penetration weld on that. And then yeah, we've got my pivot the right way for that end, so yeah, we should be right to tack that up and then weld that round. Right, that's that welded up. I don't know whether to put some plates over it or not, but I'll worry about that later. I'll put it back on the plough now, and then I'll either have to chop these brackets off and move them further down and re-weld them back on, or I'll have to make a new longer rod. But we'll put it on and see what it looks like and what it fits up like, and then see what we need to do. Right, that's that press arm on there. So it is dropped down a little bit because these holes are worn in here. It looks like it's had them welded on at some point to make up the difference in the holes. So I'll have to sort that out, but yeah, that's how it fits. That bar, you could probably get away with that and leaving it as it is, but it doesn't, must not be the right bar for you because it doesn't actually fit in between that and brackets. So we'll maybe have to chop them off, make some new ones with the right size hole in it, weld them back on again. I just need to make sure that that press arm is sort of 90 degrees with like the centre line of the plough. I'm not quite sure whether it will matter or not, whether it's bang on 90. I don't think it will do. It's going to be difficult to know where to go off. Yeah, I've just been looking on Google for presses, and it looks like they have a hook that goes in there and grabs onto that pin, and it pulls it along with the hook. And then when you want to drop it off, that's a little ram. The ram comes up, and then the hook goes through. Turn your plough over, go back down the field the other way, and then it picks it back up again. And when you're not using the press arm, folds round like that, and then goes in there. Again, it is a bit lower than it should be because of them holes are worn in there. Yeah, it's got a bit of movement on that. I'm not quite sure what they usually have to hold them when they're in this position. I might have to make another little bracket on there with something to hold it out the way when you're not using it, otherwise it'll just swing about. Instead of chopping them off and welding some new ones on, I've managed to drill them out to 25mm. It's an inch bolt, or that one on that end's an inch bolt anyway. So I drilled them through with a good old blacksmith's drill in the battery drill. Took a bit of chewing through, but we got there. So that's that sorted. So I just have to grind a bit off there because it's too big to go in there for some reason. It's not, I don't know whether this is a mismatch of stuff, why it doesn't fit, I don't know. Yeah, just wants a bit grinding off it. And then I think with these bits, it's had these bits welded on before, but they're broken off. So I think I'll just weld them on a bit better. And then that'll take up the slack in them holes. Seems daft making new ones when they've got the right size hole in them already. I don't know what they're off, but they'll do for that anyway. Right, I've got this sorted now, I think. So I've skipped ahead a bit, didn't record it, but I've got them welded on there. Take the slack out of them. I have made a pin for there. Just need a linch pin to go through the bottom. I haven't got one the right size at the moment. And then I've also welded another set of, I've cut them out and welded them on there. So then when you're not using the press arm or you want to go down the road, transport mode, just take that pin out. And you fold this back around like that. And then this bar goes into there. Like that. And now it's in transport mode, or not using it mode. I don't know how they're supposed to be. I just thought it saves. I was thinking about having to make something from here to there to hold it, but then I'd also have to do something with that. So I just thought if I weld another set of lugs on there, then just use that to stop this falling back out again. A bit of wobble in it, but the ends of that linkage are a little bit worn. I had to chop a bit out of there as well to get it to come far enough back, otherwise it was catching on there. But yeah, I think that's sorted. I don't think I'm going to bother putting a plate over there. That join will be, the weld should be as strong as the box section, so I think we're all right. And then when that stays on anyway, it's pulling from there to there. I suppose the force is trying to go back the other way. But yeah, no, I think that should do for that.